Now a grazier seems to weather drought, as his thirsty stock expire, and with a will he turns, runs off raging flood and fire. But the problem that Dave Simpson had, no cure had yet been found, when a bunch of dopey mongrels made the journey out of town. They came out of a motor car that had its wireless blaring and nose inside with elbows out, went by his gate of terror. They'd blow the horn to scare his chooks and run his mailbox down, and revengeful hate poor David out as they scarpered back to town. Now behind his house, an old bough shed was used for storing stuff, and he lived within a feral cat. Ugly, mean and tough. Huge he was and feral, with claws as sharp as knives, and canines passing unaware would flee to save their lives when this ginger-coloured thrashing machine came hissing through the door, jumping out of an old brown suitcase lying open on the floor. You'd hear a yowl, the yelps and yips and yaps would rent the air. When the brawl was over, all that was left was skin and hair. And while passing by the shed one day, there David spied the cat, and he saw it was a-dozing in the suitcase where it sat. When an idea of such cruel intent he thought of 'twas a sin, but slammed the lid down hard and locked the old cat in. Now I don't have to tell you what happened after that. One cranky, cheesed-off pussy, one peeved-off, cranky cat, who vented his frustration with a caterwauling roar. And that suitcase took a beating as it bounced around the floor. But soon it stopped, and Dave approached, nudged it with his foot. No response, picked it up and put it in his ute. Then he drove down to his mailbox, placed it there and lay down low, in a hide where he could see approaching vehicles on the road. And all at once a trail of dust appeared, and music loudly blaring come wafting to his ears. Now, a big bunch of dongos they've not seen round for years, perhaps round for ages, perhaps at Ashton's Circus when the apes escaped their cages. And as they skidded to a hole with a flame and awful din, the door was flung wide open, and the suitcase thrown in. With bullhead whoops and hollows, the old car took off with speed, as Dave crept from the hiding place he'd made amongst the weeds. Now, of course, he missed the action, although he couldn't see that far. But for all you folks that are listening, let's go and join him in that car. Oh, of course, the curiosity of such a find as this, a suitcase large and heavy, boys, it's too much to resist. Everyone was leaning forward to see what lay inside with trembling hands and hopeful hearts. The lid was open wide, and hell erupted there and then. They paid for their mistake as the cat unleashed its talons and began to oscillate. So, spurred on by blaring music and unleashed a wild attack, spurning all whose foot stood before it from the front seat to the back. Now, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was gory, that's a fact. It's just minor carnage when compared to feral cats. But the screams were something awful, and the blood was running free as the cranky feral mob continued on his vengeful spree. And the driver was the first to go, bailed out with no regard to the other dopey buggers that were still within the car. So before we're hit with spatter from the cat-inflicted gore, let's leave them to their fate and rejoin Dave once more. Well, he slowly got up off his back, where in the dust he fell, but hardly drew a breath, and tears ran down his cheeks as well. He'd seen the driver exit, and he mused about how they'd feel. We're the feral cat for company, and no driver at the wheel. And no one in the car was spared from being torn about, and it wasn't long before the other dopey buggers tumbled out. Dave just stood and watched them, knew he'd seen the last of them. And he fell down in the bulldust and began to laugh again. Now the car and cat continued down the road a little way, and holding in a table drain can still be seen today. Now tourists travel down that road and stare with face aghast and wonder at the peril of the car they're driving past. The stuffing of the seats hangs out from countless rips and tears and stains like blood. And something else is also found in there. But if they stop to have a closer look, they'll notice that an old and battered suitcase is still lying in the back. But if they make a move to try and drag it from the wreck, a yell so low and fearful it raised the hackles on their neck. Before an awful creature, one surely spurned from hell, with teeth and claws and hair and every paws and a bloody awful smell, would launch itself upon them. The car now his domain, the tourists now scratched up a bit, drive up the road again. They feel a little nervous, they feel a little jaded, their nerves are somewhat frayed, so they pull into a little pub they've seen along the way. Where the barman, sympathetic to the tales of woe he hears, to soothe their nerves, yet he recommends a whiskey, rum or beer, a double or a triple, in hold till gets some use, and on the bar band-aids, sold for feral cat abuse. And the barman's doing well with all the tourists driving through. Oh, Dave, he also gets a cut. He's doing all right too. So long may tourists travel up that lonely outback track to let the tale continue of the suitcase and the cat.